Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us. We will talk plenty of Browns and Steelers, look ahead to the Bengals as well. Some news out of Berea. Jack Conklin, dislocated elbow, is in fact going to miss multiple weeks. The bright news, Kevin Stefanski expects him back at some time during this season. That's about the only bright news out of the Kevin Stefanski press conference. Blake Hance will be the starting right tackle in his absence. Kevin Stefanski again talked about the performance against the Steelers and trying to get things turned around.
You know, really disappointed and frustrated. We didn't do enough of the things that you have to do to win a game versus a division opponent, and we had to own that, and we are owning that, and then we got to learn from it, and then we got to move on from it. But that's what today is really important with our players, that we dive into it and see some areas that we can improve.
Let's welcome in Scott Patrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on brownzone.com on the internet. Scott, the Browns are 4-4, and they're playing a lot like a 500 team right now.
Yeah, they really are, and there's issues everywhere. You know, I think it starts with offense. You know, they haven't scored more than 20 points in the last 4 games. No explosive plays, and we'll talk about that more, but that stands out a lot. They couldn't run it effectively yesterday with Pittsburgh trying to take it away. And the defense, while it's been okay the last couple of weeks, still gives up long drives and just can't get enough takeaways.
Yeah, it's not one facet, which makes it, you know, that much more of a head scratcher. And when you look at the teams the Browns have beat, they're the 4 worst teams that they've played. The 4 better teams that they have played have all beat them. It's kind of the definition of a 500 team at this point. ESPN, Week 8 reactions / overreactions. And when we look at this, they say the Browns' offense is broken, and they say it is not. I repeat, it is not an overreaction. Offensive line is healthy. Cleveland's run game looks fine. Sunday wasn't the best. Steelers don't make life easy on the main problem. Passing offense looks like a bunch of checking down to the tight end, playing field position, and asking the defense to hold them. Not sustainable over a 17-week season. Cleveland in last place of the AFC North. Stefanski and his coaching staff good enough to figure it out, but they need to do it in a hurry. And Scott, nothing that is said there can I disagree with.
No, and it's interesting. Philosophically, you know, I think entering the season, we didn't know exactly what Kevin Stefanski would do. Would he throw the ball more than he did a year ago? Because he had a whole off season. It's year 2. Baker had more time in his system, but they're obviously committed to being a run-first team. And that's fine, and maybe it works in the AFC North, and maybe it works in the climate on Lake Erie. But I think it makes life tougher when you rely on that run game, and all your most of your passes are off of play action. You're missing that downfield threat. You're missing the explosive plays that make life easier. You know, it makes a 4-yard or 4-play drive is way easier than having to put 8 or 9 or 10 plays together. There's just more opportunity for mistakes, more opportunity for turnovers, penalties, whatever it is. And, you know, Kevin Stefanski said that today. We need more explosive plays in the run game and the pass game. But it just feels like systematically there's not enough opportunities for those unless Nick Chubb breaks the long run. And as good as Nick Chubb is, I don't know if you can count on that week in, week out, you know, 30 and 40-plus yard runs from your running game. You need it from your passing game, and they just haven't been there.
So what are your takeaways as you sit, and I know you probably watched it a couple of times, takeaways from that Steelers game yesterday where the Browns came out on the short end of a 15-10 game?
Yeah, I would start, we haven't talked about Baker yet. You know, I think big picture-wise, it's important that Baker played, right? He missed that game against the Broncos. We know he's got all the issues going on with the shoulder. For him to make it through the whole game, not have any setbacks, according to him. He got sacked a few times, but no big hits, didn't fall hard on that left shoulder. I think that's important. Hopefully, I mean, we're never going to stop talking about this injury because it's going to follow him all year long. But if he can string a couple of games together where it's not an issue and he continues to play, gets more comfortable with the pain in the harness, I think that's a good sign for the Browns moving forward. You know, Odell Beckham Jr. catches one ball. That's not nearly enough, and I think that plays into the lack of explosive plays on offense, because he's the guy that should be giving them to you, and he's not. And then on defense, like they're playing okay, but can't make the one big play to change a game. And, you rely on Myles Garrett to do that, or you rely on somebody in your secondary. And they had chances for turnovers. I mean, Malcolm Smith and Grant Delpit collided and both missed an interception. That could have changed the game. There was a fumble on a punt return that they don't get that could have changed the game. Now, you need some of those bounces to go your way, but the defense just has not created enough of its own luck.
Yeah, and, we've talked about it a couple times. Browns have lacked explosive plays. Kevin Stefanski did address that when he talked to the media today. Here's Kevin Stefanski on that lack of big plays.
I think for a lot of our pass game, we do want to push the ball down the field. You also want to get completions versus zone, and you don't want to ask too much of protection. So versus a good front, there were times where we were trying to get the ball out quickly. That's not to say that every play is going to be getting the ball out quickly. There are some slower developing opportunities to hit the ball, hit some shots down the field, and those are the ones that we're going to work real hard on and find ways to get that done. Yeah, I think a lot of what we're doing off of those play actions in particular, you are looking to push the ball down the field. And sometimes those opportunities are there. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's the second read is covered and you come down to a check down or what have you. But we're certainly looking for opportunities to push the ball down the field.
Scott, there really weren't that many in that Steelers game. When you look back, maybe a handful.
Yeah, I'm not even sure there's that many, Dave. I rewatched the first half again today, and you look in that fourth quarter, that late play to Odell was probably the deepest ball down the field. There were a couple of 20 to 25-yard in routes that they ran, but no, go routes down the sideline, no big post plays that you think, okay, they really stretched the defense with this. And I believe Stefanski that it's part of the plan and that he'd like to do it more. But I just flash back to last year and against the Titans. You remember going 3 tight ends, play fake, and Donovan Peoples-Jones gets by one-on-one coverage on the outside, runs a double move, and that's like an easy, quote-unquote, easy completion, right? There's no safety help. You're able to get the guy one-on-one isolated, and you take a deep shot. And there just haven't been a lot of those since the opener, really. I mean, I remember a couple to Anthony Schwartz in the opener. Baker missed Odell a couple times against the Vikings. But that's kind of all that stands out to me. And I do think it's important, Stefanski referenced it, they missed Jed Wills at left tackle for a while. You missed Conklin for a couple games, then he gets hurt again yesterday. And you do have to be cognizant of the protection, especially with Baker dealing with that shoulder injury, that you can't have him taking a bunch of 7-step drops and waiting, because then he's susceptible to getting hit. But there has to be a way to scheme up something where you can take shots and not get Baker hurt.
Yeah, and if not, you're going to get a lot of what you saw yesterday with 8-9 guys in the box, and Nick Chubb can do that, but it's not going to be something you can hang your hat on. Baker Mayfield also talked about where the Browns sit. So 4-4, everybody in the AFC has at least 2 losses, but right now, Browns have they can't look at anybody else. That's Baker Mayfield's kind of mindset here.
We need to be worried about us. We know our division's extremely talented. It's a very tough physical division. We know that. Obviously, with the Bengals coming along, you can feel that. But we have to take it one week at a time, and we have to do our job. It's not about anybody else but us right now, and that's just a fact. We have to handle it that way. We can't be worried about the big picture. We have to take it one week at a time and just chip away at this.
And Scott, the Bengals are coming into town, and that's a team that's offense has been clicking. The Browns' offense, quite honestly, last couple of weeks, even in the win against the Broncos, you go back to the Cardinals game, this offense just is not getting it done.
It's not. And I think Baker's right about, philosophically, they have to look at themselves. They can't be concerned about being in last place in the North and what the AFC playoff picture is like. They have to go out and fix the problems and then get better at it. And, get better at what's, killing them and improve. But when you look at that Cincinnati matchup, Dave, Cincinnati's going to score 30 a game. That's what they do. Now, maybe the Browns can limit them to 24 or whatever and give themselves a chance. But it's hard to believe the Browns can go in there, not be explosive, score 17, and have any chance to be in that game when you're facing Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Boyd and Higgins and their tight end and Joe Mixon. So, yeah, I think it makes it tougher when we're focused on the offense, which I think we should be, and then the next matchup is a team that you know you're going to have to score a lot of points. That puts even more pressure on Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, because I think there's certain games you go into and say, hey, we can win this one 17-14. Yesterday was one of those type games. Pittsburgh did not scare you offensively. Cincinnati is a whole different animal.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, not only do you have the explosiveness, you know, with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, tight ends playing well. Joe Mixon is a guy that, you know, if you decide they're gonna spread you out, he's a guy that'll run through some tackles. So it is a tough matchup for the Browns the way they are currently playing. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll look a little deeper into Odell Beckham. Can the Browns get him involved? They haven't been able to so far. Sports for CLE. Will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN's First Take. And this is what Dan Orlovsky thinks the Browns should do with Odell Beckham.
First of all, if I were the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints, I would call the Browns and see if they'll trade Odell Beckham. I think the Browns need to trade.
What about the Packers?
Packers are in there as well.
Yeah.
I would put them in that
He'd love
conversation.
to go to the Packers. Yeah.
Trade Odell to get what?
Something on the defensive side, because that is the reason why they're the biggest disappointment in football. That's why they're a 4-4 football team. This team has 2 losses this year when they scored 30 and 42. Lost 2 games this year when they
Chargers
scored 42.
47-42.
And the Chiefs.
And the Chiefs.
In week 1.
That's right.
They're not a 4-4 football team because their quarterback is playing with one arm and playing tough yesterday all season. They're a 4-4 football team because all the money and all the draft picks that they spent on the defensive side of the football have been an absolute and utter failure. To lose 2 games in the NFL when you score 30 and 42 is a failure. Baker Mayfield's been playing with one arm. Yesterday does matter because I thought, and I tweeted this out, Baker Mayfield, this is the biggest drive in your career. I fully expected him to go lead them down for a game-winning drive. But he got let down by his stars. That matters because sitting at 5-3 when your quarterback plays with a broken arm or a broken shoulder is a significantly different feeling than when you're sitting at 4-4.
And Scott, I agree with that. That 5-3 versus 4-4 doesn't seem like much. It's a huge deal. I don't agree with trading Odell Beckham. I don't think you're going to get anything for him at this point. But you got to figure a way to get him. He's just not involved, and that I continually sit there and go, how?
Yeah, I'm with you. 5-3 is huge compared to 4-4. I wouldn't put all the blame on the defense.
Certainly not yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, they gave 15 points yesterday, right? They won the Vikings game. So I think the blame is equal to go around. But when it comes to Odell, it's truly an unsolved mystery to me, Dave, trying to figure out why the Browns can't have more success with Odell. And, I think part of it's Kevin Stefanski. He's got to be better designing plays and a game plan to get Odell the ball. I think about, it feels like every week there's a 5-yard out to Austin Hooper just to get him the ball. Well, where's that for Odell? Why isn't Odell catching easy passes to get him the ball? And he's way more explosive when he has the ball in his hands than Austin Hooper. So I think it starts with Stefanski. I think Baker Mayfield is responsible for plenty of it. Yesterday there's a play he threw over the middle for Jarvis Landry. If he'd waited a beat, Odell's coming open underneath Jarvis, but he doesn't look for him. And I think that's kind of a recurring theme, that he doesn't look for him enough. Maybe it's backlash to when he looked for him too much in 2019 and the beginning of last year. And then Odell's not blame-free. There was a hot route that I think he missed. Baker was mad. It was a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half. And I think Baker expected Odell to do something he didn't. Baker winds up taking a sack, comes up saying, hey, you should have noticed that. On that deep ball down the middle late, Baker, I thought, waited too long. If he'd seen him earlier, it's an easy completion. Instead, it's late. The throw's not great. Odell kind of one-arms it with, the defense coming in. It's a tough play. He's worried about getting hit. He's got a bad shoulder. So he's not perfect by any means, but he needs to get more chances. To me, he's the Browns' most dynamic weapon on offense outside of Nick Chubb. And for him to only touch the ball one time, it's criminal.
Yeah, and he wasn't even the other time he was targeted, there was the penalty on the play over the middle that you're talking about. So it was officially one target. All right, this kind of will go in tandem with what you're talking about. This is Odell Beckham's ranks in the NFL. NFL Stats tweets this out. 150th in receptions per target, 138 in receptions per route run, 136 in yards after the catch per reception, 31st in drop rate. Now, he has dropped the ball a couple of times, but how is he not targeted more? That's the main thing. Just get him the ball. If you have, and get him the ball on the outside. Getting him on the ball where they can help in the middle. Get him isolated.
Yeah, I'm with you. It feels like, that stat about yards after catch. Remember that play against the Jets in, was it 19 when he got here, and he catches the slant and goes the distance? Like, we're not seeing a whole lot of those plays. Now, that's over the middle, but he can also run away from guys. But I think we're just not seeing those plays on the outside, whether it's the out and up, the hook and go, or just a straight go route, where the safety probably isn't going to make a play on the ball. It's Odell one-on-one versus a corner. Now, I understand it's the guys playing off coverage and it's not going to be there. But if that's the case, then throw him a bunch of hooks until the corner comes up and takes that away. It just feels like there's a lot of opportunities that are missed. And when you look around the league at other quote-unquote number one receivers, those guys are volume target guys. And Odell is a volume target receiver, and I think he plays his best when the ball comes his way a lot. And I know the Browns offense isn't set up for that, but it certainly can adapt to take more advantage and give him more opportunity.
Well, earlier you again asked Coach Stefanski, is Odell still a dynamic playmaker? Kevin Stefanski addressed that as well as what it's going to take to get him going.
I do. Yeah, I do, Scott. And I base that off of what I see from him each week. And again, I just think he can affect the game. And that's where I'm really making sure that myself, our coaches, we have to put him in position to make some plays. I would tell you, first and foremost, I need to do a better job. I really do. I need to make sure that I put him in position to make some plays. And I didn't do a good enough job. Certainly yesterday. Having said that, he gets a lot of attention from the defense. There were a bunch of plays where the safety is cheating to him, and that opens up opportunities for other guys. I think of an early third down that we had where the post safety stayed to the boundary side because he was cheating towards Odell, and we hit a big play to Jarvis. So his effect on our offense is there, but I do need to do a better job of making sure that the ball makes its way into his hands.
And again, to use it's overused. He is the home run hitter on this offense, without question.
Well, yeah, there's nobody else. I mean, maybe Anthony Schwartz, but we haven't seen enough of the rookie, right? Odell's established. He's a different type of receiver than Jarvis or even Donovan Peoples-Jones, certainly Rashard Higgins. Yeah, that's why I asked Coach about whether he still considers him dynamic, because that's how he describes him often, coming back from the ACL. He looks dynamic, he's dynamic. And if he's not that type of player anymore, then maybe we need to lower expectations. But I believe he's still that type of player. I watch him practice every day. I still see him on the field. Like he looks like he gets open to me. So if that's how it is, and Greg Newsome said he still believes he is as well, then it's up to the Browns to take advantage of that skill set. And they're not, and it's good that Kevin Stefanski admitted as much. And I do believe that he affects the defense and he opens things up for other players, but that's not all he should be doing. He should have a much greater impact than he's had. And there's no way this offense gets to where it needs to be for this team to get to where it wants to be without Odell playing a much bigger role.
Yeah, he allows them to threaten the perimeter. You've got Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is going to be a guy that you kind of pound and get him off tackle and you get him outside. But Odell, if you use him right, will widen out and spread out that defense. They like to talk about defending the entire width of the field. Odell can do that if you just line him up wide and get him the ball some. All right. PFF, highest graded Browns in Week 8. Myles Garrett, this is not a surprise, the highest by a long shot. Wyatt Teller also up there. Then the grades go down pretty significantly into the 70s. Baker Mayfield had a great game, a good game, grade-wise by PFF, 71.5, fourth highest Brown. But again, when your defense only allows 15 points, you should win the football game.
Yeah, and there's just not enough good grades from PFF right there. It shows you that the Browns did not play well overall. Myles, he keeps playing well every week, and he had one sack yesterday. Ben gets it out of his hands so fast it makes it really difficult on the edge rusher. Myles won a bunch of times and just wasn't able to get there because Ben got rid of it so fast. And part of me says, gosh, you need Myles to take over a game, but you also have to have opportunities. And I thought he played pretty well, and that grade, agrees with that, obviously. But there just weren't enough other high quality performances overall. And when you look at the defense, 15 should be enough to get it done. Greg Newsome, we talked to him today, and he blamed the defense for giving up another fourth quarter touchdown. He said we entered the fourth quarter with the lead and couldn't secure it. And that's a theme, right? We always talk about Baker not being able to lead the fourth quarter drive against the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Steelers. The defense gave up fourth quarter touchdowns in all those games. So it is a team game. And yes, the defense could have done more, but when you look at it, the bottom line is giving up 15 should be plenty.
Scott Patrick and I can step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll look into that fourth quarter and how the Browns offense has done. It has not been a strength lately for the Browns in the fourth quarter. And how did the offensive line play yesterday? We'll take a look at that. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns, and it is time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Let's take a listen.
Dave, at this time, One thing that drives me crazy with Kevin Stefanski is his continued calling of going for it on fourth down. Yes, we as Browns fans would love to see a smash-mouth team that dominates opponents, but sad to say we are not at that level yet. So don't give up valuable points, even though it might be 3 instead of 7, or give up vital yardage. Make your opponent have to drive the ball 90 yards instead of 55 or 60. Our defense is nowhere good enough yet to stop the opponent on a consistent basis. We have a lot of obstacles to overcome before we can become classified as a dominant team. Bottom line, points add up to wins, and wins add up to the confidence to dominate.
All right, we appreciate that, Ron Byer. Scott Petrak, I kind of get the way Kevin Stefanski decides if he's going to go for it. If he expects it to be a high-scoring game, he will try to get those fourth down conversions, and especially, I'm guessing that's going to be the theme going down to Cincinnati as well. But I do also understand the flip side of that. When they failed to make it on fourth down, it's just looked ugly at times.
Yeah, and yesterday was another example. I think fourth and 1 from Pittsburgh's 39 is an automatic go for it, because you're not going to kick a 58-yard field goal. Punting it, you risk a touchback and then you only gain 19 yards. That's the perfect time to go for it. But then they go to run it and they go jumbo. Conklin is still in the game. They bring in Blake Hance, line him up as an extra tight end, and he gets manhandled by Cameron Hayward and it blows up the entire play. And all of a sudden, the Steelers have the ball at their 40. And that's not I don't think that's a Stefanski problem. It's an execution issue. But they still weren't able to do it. There's been plenty of plays that he calls on fourth down, and they've been bad calls and don't work, and it's happened time and again. And then surprisingly, later in the game, I think 2 minutes left in the third quarter, they had 4th and 1 right around midfield, and he punts. And that's a little out of character because of all the times he's gone for it. And it was a 1-point game, and you got to figure your defense is going to give up some points, the rest of the game. You're not going to win 10-9. Thought he might have gone for it there, didn't. Probably shows you the confidence he had in the offense at that point. But just another time where if you can't trust your offense, then you do things that are maybe out of character for Stefanski. And again, it comes back to bite you because the defense gives up the winning touchdown.
Yeah, and I think the thing is the Steelers' offense, you don't think they're going to score in bunches. I think you're going to see a lot of the fourth down attempts. If it's fourth and short, I think the Browns fully expect the Bengals' offense to score points because that's kind of what they do. The Browns' offense is going to have to step it up against Cincinnati. Well, the Browns haven't scored in the fourth quarter in the last 3 games, which I looked at that and was like, wow. They're also in the bottom third in the league in fourth quarter scoring, 23rd overall. Kevin Stefanski addressed the Browns' inability to score in the fourth quarter and how concerning it is.
It's frustrating anytime you don't win, and we have to finish. We got to close games, like you mentioned. The games in this NFL are going to be tight, and we understand that, and we got to find a way to finish. We didn't get it done yesterday, which is disappointing, and we have opportunities where I got to come through for the players. We got to make a play in certain situations, but it's absolutely part of what we're charged with moving forward is making a play in those fourth quarters and put a game away on offense.
And Scott, those were strengths of this team last year when they made that run to the playoffs. Fourth quarter, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt kind of owned it. Anytime they needed a drive, they seemed to be able to put it together. It's kind of been what's missing here.
Yeah, and I think they're one of the few teams in the league without a fourth quarter comeback, right, where they win the game in the fourth quarter, not just the last couple of minutes throughout the fourth quarter where they get that go-ahead score. Part of it's circumstance. It feels like last year they had the lead and were just trying to kind of run out the clock and, finish the game. This year they've been trailing and have had to go win the game, and it's a different mindset. You can't just run thinking, okay, we'll punt if we have to. You have to get first downs. You have to score points. So I think that's a little bit of a difference, not having Kareem Hunt for a couple games, not having Nick Chubb for a couple games. is an impact, your tackle injuries. But again, I don't want to blame it on injuries because every team in the league has them. I feel like the Browns are healthier now than they have been for a good chunk of the season. It just comes down to having success at big moments, whether that's third down, where they're not playing particularly well, fourth down, which we discussed, they're not playing well, in the fourth quarter. All those things are huge moments, and your best players need to play best at those moments. And Baker wasn't great against the Chiefs and the Chargers. Odell, or especially Jarvis on Sunday, was not great in the big moments. And when that happens, that's how you lose these kind of close games.
Yeah. I again, what did you think of the offensive line? You know, we kept kind of hearing that the Browns didn't run it effectively. They only ran the ball 23 times. They averaged 4.2 yards a carry. Now, they did throw it 31 times. 4.2 yards a carry against the Steelers defense and that defensive front, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, Chubb was under 4. I think it was 16 for 61, so it's like 3.8. You know, and he's your guy. I felt, and he had a couple of, or at least one, I think 20-yarder, which skews the stats a little bit. I felt like it was really tough sledding for them running the ball, and I think that affects your play calls. If you're Kevin Stefanski, you're sick of being in second and long. It's tough to operate like that. So that makes you throw the ball a little more. Then you get in a couple 2-minute situations at the end of the half, and then in the fourth quarter where you're feeling you need to throw more. I think that kind of shifted the balance there. I thought the O-line was okay. It's a tough matchup against the Steelers, even without. I mean, they're missing Tuitt. They're missing Alualu. Bud Dupree's no longer there. But Cam Hayward had a big influence, a big impact. So did T.J. Watt. I thought when Conklin left the game and Hance came in, that changed things. Hance was not able to block Watt on his own, so you have to help with the tight end or running back. He still got a sack and a half. He still made plays in the backfield and pressured Baker Mayfield. It's just a tough matchup for Hance. Right tackle's not his usual spot. It will be from now on. So I thought the line was okay. You know, the Baker, I think he was sacked 4 times. A lot of those was Baker not having his first read, not being open, and he held the ball too long. So I thought the line was okay, but certainly not as good as I've seen it in the past.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we will flip sides of the ball, talk a little bit about the Browns' defense, and then look ahead to the Bengals. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions, lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns, looking back at the Steelers, looking ahead to the Bengals. Kevin Stefanski talked about that defense, which only allowed 15 points against the Steelers. And, you know, was the defense good?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously to hold a team to 15 points, you know, is a good outing, but really not good enough is what I would tell you. And that's what I told the players. You know, none of us did enough. When you don't win, it's always a question of what more could I have done. So while we were good in moments, we got to take the ball away, and we didn't do that yesterday. And we got to find a way on some of those drives to get off the field.
Let's welcome back in Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. You can also read them on brownzone.com. Scott, that touchdown catch by the tight end, that was a heck of a catch. That was one of the better catches that I've seen. In real speed, I'm like, oh, there's no way he got his feet in. And on the replay, he sure did.
Yeah, that was a great play. And Ronnie Harrison, he's had his issues this year, and he had another bad penalty yesterday. You know, late hit out of bounds made no sense at all. But he was in position on that play. The kid made a great catch for the Steelers. But that's the kind of play and kind of moment where if the Browns get that fourth down stop, right, and it makes the Steelers pay for not having a kicker, then the game changes, and maybe the outcome changes, and the discussion today is different. It's about it being a gritty win and heading to Cincinnati with a chance to, move into first place. All those kinds of things, but they didn't get it done when they needed to. And yes, it was a great catch, but there were other times where they didn't make the plays. Back to that interception that was dropped, or, Grant Delpit misses a tackle and the guy goes for 20 yards after. There are just enough plays and enough mistakes that you can't say the defense played a great game.
Yeah, they played well, but again, not good enough to win. So Greg Newsome played pretty well. He talked about the fact the Browns were -1 in the giveaway takeaway. Again, didn't get any turnovers, turned the ball over, a fumble that was really costly. Here's Newsome on the defense and not getting those turnovers.
I mean, yeah, we just gotta, we gotta stay the course. Every single day at practice, gotta stress emphasizing, just trying to get the ball out. And it's eventually gonna come. We just gotta stay the course. It'll definitely pay off. I mean, like I said, we just gotta keep doing it at practice, and then hopefully it translates to the games. I mean, we just gotta stay the course, and some of those balls will, eventually come out.
Is it becoming a little bit of a mental block? Are they putting too much of an emphasis on creating turnovers, and is that leading to some of the blown coverages and the penalties? I'm searching here. I'm searching for what's happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think some of the breakdowns in previous games were because of that. You're desperate to make a play, and you get out of your assignment, you lose discipline, and it leads to a terrible play. Now, I think a lot of turnovers, we focus so much on it because it's a huge part of the game, and coaches focus so much on it. There's a huge luck factor involved. And I don't know if the defense was any better last year when it was creating all these turnovers than it is this year. But just sometimes they go your way. Now, you have to catch the ball when it's thrown to you, and I don't think the Browns have been good in that area, and that certainly comes down to the players. There's no doubt about that. But, fumbles. Kyler Murray put the ball on the ground like 4 times and recovered all of them. That could go the other way. The Jarvis fumble, the Browns could have recovered it, and we're talking about a Browns win. It doesn't happen. Now, he shouldn't have fumbled, and Schobert and Watt make a great play there. So there's a little bit of both involved. It's execution and it's luck, but it's certainly become a theme for this defense. Stefanski brings it up all the time. Joe Woods, the coordinator, brings it up all the time. The players are talking about it, and they keep talking about an avalanche. Once it happens, there's going to be an avalanche of turnovers. Well, the first one needs to happen, right? Or the first couple need to happen. And it feels like, as Yogi Berra said, it's kind of getting late early, that we're getting deep into the season without that starting to happen.
Yeah, and if that avalanche is coming, let's hope it's in the AFC North, because that would help a great deal. All right, the Bengals, again, they lost yesterday to the New York Jets with their backup quarterback, Mike White, not the guy that was the former mayor of Cleveland, a different Mike White, from Western Kentucky in Bowling Green, Kentucky. How concerned are you with the Bengals? That's a team that beat the Ravens, beat them up, but then turned around the next week and lost to the New York Jets.
Yeah, part of that's life in the NFL, right? You can't play well every week, and you go from the Ravens and the Browns. It's a little bit of a, trap game, as we call it. But I think it does show vulnerabilities from the Bengals, and they entered this season with questions on defense, and I think they've given up plenty of points this year, but the offense is covered, has made up for that. And they had a really good game against the Ravens. But this shows you that they can be taken advantage of. Now, do the Browns have – the Browns have the talent to take advantage of, but will they? Will they execute? Will the plan be right? Will Baker play well enough to take advantage? And we saw him play well last year, right? He had the huge game in Cincinnati after a loss to Pittsburgh that helped turn the season around, after Odell got hurt early in that game. So I think it's a chance for the offense to get back on the right track. I think the Bengals give you opportunities. You can get to Joe Burrow because that line's not that good as long as you force him to hold the ball a little bit. But you have to do all those things because if you let Joe Burrow get hot, he can take over that game, and it will be tough for Baker to go throw for throw with him.
The other thing is you now have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You've got Joe Mixon. There's Tyler Boyd. This offense is a lot more like the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Chiefs than what the Browns have seen the last 2 weeks in the Broncos and the Steelers.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's way more explosive, way more dangerous. It feels like the only kind of vulnerability is that offensive line, which has improved, I think, but still is not super strong. Now, Burrow makes up for it by getting rid of the ball in a hurry sometimes. But if Miles can have a day, if Clowney can have a day, that's how you can change it. You get maybe a strip sack. You force him into a bad interception. Again, takeaways feels like the only way or the best way to stop that offense. Because if you just let Burrow sit back there, he's going to pick you apart because he's got too many weapons. Now hopefully Denzel Ward will be back, and you can go Ward and Newsome and Troy Hill in the slot and Greedy Williams if you need him. We don't know about John Johnson III. It'd be nice if he could play because then you can go with your dime package. You kind of need all hands on deck in that secondary just to keep up with all the weapons that the Bengals have.
The other thing is the defense has been very uneven. When they have lost, they've given up a bunch of points.
Yeah, right, and that's you're just looking for consistency. But when you talk about the Bengals, I like what Larry Ogunjobi, the benefit that he's brought to that front. I think he's made a big impact in the locker room and on the field. But they are vulnerable, and they have Trey Hendrickson again. He's a pass rusher, has helped their defense. But if you can protect Baker and run the ball and set up some things, I think you can attack the Bengals. The Vikings scored on them early. Jacksonville, I think, scored on them early. They're not. To me, they're not an upper echelon team in the AFC, right? They look like they might have been when they beat the Ravens. I still need to see them prove it. And the way to beat them is to attack that defense because you're not going to shut down that offense all day long.
Yeah, and you know what? The Bengals are going to look at the Browns coming in like they looked at the Ravens. So you are going to be getting their best shot from a young team that wants to prove they're more like the Ravens than the Jets. So the Browns better be ready for that one.
There's no doubt. They're going to bounce back. They'll be home. It should be a great crowd. I expect the best of the Bengals, which means it's going to be an uphill climb for the Browns.
Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram and BrownZone.com. Scott, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, Scott Petrak. Make sure you read him. Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as on BrownZone.com on the internet. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us. Baker Mayfield talks about that turnover that the Browns offense had. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Browns getting ready to take on the Bengals next Sunday down in Cincinnati, looking back at the Steelers' loss 15-10 over at First Energy Stadium. Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's First Take, had this to say about the Browns and where they sit right now.
When I look at the body language of a Jarvis Landry, and I look at Odell Beckham Jr., who's just praying to get the hell up out of there, okay? When I'm looking at this team and a defense is saying we got to do something because we don't have but so much faith in this offense, who am I to point to? I can look at Kevin Stefanski, and I get all of that, but I can also look at Baker Mayfield. And what I'm saying to you is that when you come out, Dan, and you say, well, Baker Mayfield wasn't at fault yesterday, you got us. You're absolutely right. But if we take into account what the expectations were for the team coming into the season, the role that particular quarterback was going to play. See, I watched Dan Orlovsky because I like how he uses the big board, especially when he tries to talk about me. You understand what I'm saying? I like when he tries to do it, so I'm looking at him and waiting to see if he's going to try to start something.
I'm going to jump all over this.
And you know what I saw Orlovsky say? I saw Orlovsky say more than a week ago, the most disappointing team in the entire NFL was the Cleveland Browns.
Stand by it.
And what I'm saying is, you can't say that and let Baker Mayfield off the hook.
Let's welcome in Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. And Kevin, I don't think anybody is off the hook. I think it goes offense, defense, everything. 4-4 is not where this team expected to be.
They're average, Dave. Their record says it. Their play says it. It's too inconsistent. It's too helter-skelter. One week, the defense plays well. The offense doesn't. Another week, the offense plays great. The defense can't get a stop. On third and fourth down, we see the same things as last year. And I see what Stephen A. Smith is doing and saying in that clip. And he's trying to spin the narrative because he's been, one of those guys that has talked against Baker Mayfield the entire season. And Baker Mayfield does not get excluded from any sort of blame for yesterday. But a lot of people go to just one person, and we're not seeing the full picture that this team has a lot of problems. The team that before the season on paper looked like this team was ready to roll. They put all their chips in the middle of the table to go after it after they saw what they could do last year. And now they added a bunch of talent, and it's not being used right. It's not being coached right. It's not executing right on the field. And that goes to every single player and coach and person a part of this organization, not just one over the other, especially when you lose a game like that to a team that you should beat and take yourself to the upper echelon of the AFC North, which is one of the most difficult divisions in all of football.
So Browns were -1 in the giveaway takeaway thing, and it was a costly one. It was on a drive when they looked to be going in to take the lead. Baker Mayfield talked about that fumble by Jarvis Landry and Landry taking ownership of it after the game.
That's the type of guy he is. I mean, it's on all of us. Everybody's going to point fingers at a few plays, but the fact is we just didn't get into a rhythm today, and we stubbed our toe a few times, penalties, and just didn't make the plays we needed to win. And it's pretty simple, Obviously, I mean, Jarvis is a veteran guy. He's one of our best leaders. Unfortunate that, it happened, but he's going to take ownership. He's going to get it corrected, and we know how he's going to handle it. And we all have to take ownership. This doesn't just fall on him at all, by any means. There was a lot of throws we could have made today. There were plays we should have had. Plain and simple.
You talk about just not being able to get into that rhythm. Why do you think that was?
Yeah, we just got to execute. Do the simple things right, make the routine plays. There's something about that. We just need to make the routine plays and keep the chains moving, and just push forward.
And Kevin, is that something that the Browns are trying to do too much? They're trying to hit the collective grand slam with the bases empty. What are your takeaways from the Steelers game?
I mean, they might be trying to do too much, but we hear after every single game, especially every loss, Dave, Coach Stefanski saying, I got to coach better. Baker saying, I got to play better. These other guys coming up to a podium saying, I got to play better. We got to execute better as a defense, as an offense. But we haven't seen it yet. So what isn't translating from what they're saying to the field? We're kind of going back a couple of years where, we started to hear all of this. Yes, this is what we want to hear. but we're not seeing it on the field. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to be about it. And somehow, maybe this team, like you're talking about, Dave, doing too much. Maybe they do just got to go get back to the basics and just keep everything simple and allow just quick reads for Baker, quick decisions for receivers, quick decisions, quick twitch decisions for defenders and for the defensive line. Just keep everything simple instead of trying to add so much and put so much pressure on defense. Has got to get turnovers. Offense has got to hit these long 45, 50-yard touchdown bombs to keep up with the rest of the NFL. Just do what you do best and adjust to how the NFL has now adjusted to you, Kevin Stefanski.
Well, the Browns, they're a 500 team, and they're 2 losses behind the top teams in the AFC. Plenty of time left. There's 8 games into it. Problem is, they're making the mistakes that a 500 team makes pretty consistently. Do you agree, disagree?
Oh, I totally agree. Consistently inconsistent is what this team has been all year, and that's what gets you to 500. That is absolutely what gets you to 500 and 4-4, and kind of on that borderline of this could go south really quick. We could take ourselves out of playoff contention really quick and be talking about towards the end of the year, yeah, we see the Browns in those graphics in the hunt on CBS and on Fox. But, these games that they've let slip away, Kansas City, Los Angeles, even yesterday to the Pittsburgh Steelers losing 15-10, these games that, it's that 1 or 2 games that makes the difference of a playoff run or something greater in your season versus once your last game, your 17th game is over, you're going home for the rest of the offseason. And the Browns are teetering on the brink of too many of those games being put together and already taking themselves out of absolute contention. They've got to get it turned around, and they got to get it turned around quickly. If you're still consistently inconsistent going into a game against the Bengals, young upstart team like the Browns kind of were last year in a way, you saw what kind of confidence the Browns brought into most games last year. That's what the Bengals are bringing. Browns have got to find a way to get back to that team of last year where, people weren't picking them for anything. They were the ones kind of hunting. How can you get back to hunting instead of being hunted and being taken down so many times this season?
Yeah, and the clock is ticking on them to do that. The margin for error, it's getting real thin for the Browns as far as the playoffs go. All right. Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Greg Newsome will talk about some of the talented young Bengals the Browns will be facing. And also a team with a similar record to the Browns traded their best player to the Rams today. Talk about that. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at casaforchildren.org.
Browns are 4-4 getting ready for the Bengals. The Broncos are 4-4. It's one of the teams the Browns beat. And today, the Broncos traded Von Miller to the LA Rams for 2 second-day draft choices. Kevin, Brown situation, do you sense there is a sense of urgency, the appropriate sense of urgency that is needed as you get to week 9 and you're 4-4 and you expect to be a playoff team?
I don't, and it's weird to kind of, as we were talking about with the press conferences and the way these guys talk, I mean, yes, they're saying all the right things, but there just doesn't seem to be as big of a sense of urgency as there needs to be. Now, the world is not falling down, and the Browns are 500, so they still have opportunities to turn this thing around, put themselves in the playoffs, play your best football towards the end of the year. Then you become more dangerous against the playoff teams that people are glowing about right now. Let's say the Bengals, the Ravens, if the Chargers are able to kind of find their way again, who we unfortunately lost to by 5 points as well. It doesn't feel like that sense of urgency is there, or the necessary level of urgency is there. It's not time to hit the panic button inside that room. I know a lot of fans are. Us in the media are going to hit the panic button, in a sense. But in Berea, it's not time to hit the panic button. It's just time to get the train rolling, hit that button, get something going, get some sort of momentum going to then build one game at a time and really become the team that you thought you were going to be and worked to be this whole season.
Well, you want to see kind of a performance where they come out and take control of a game early and kind of dominate. We haven't seen that. Greg Newsome, Browns rookie, has played well. He talked about what he sees with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the Bengals. Somebody the Browns are getting ready to defend on Sunday.
Two great players. They've been playing together since college, so they have that chemistry. Haven't watched too much on them yet. I'm going to start today, but, just from watching games and things like that, they're electric. They got a lot of great players on the offense, so we're definitely going to have to bring our A game.
Kevin Arnold, what concerns you about the Bengals, and what areas can the Browns exploit to get a much-needed win that puts them back over 500?
Biggest concern is how they have such an electric offense, and we've seen the electric offenses against this defense in the past. I go back to the Los Angeles Chargers, and yeah, they've kind of stumbled a little bit here as of late, but against us, the miscommunications that we kind of still see in that secondary and some of the injuries still plaguing the secondary room, those miscommunications, you can't do that against big-time weapons like Jamar Chase, like T. Higgins is becoming for Joe Burrow. And, of course, Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield, running the ball, but also being able to catch the ball and do what the Bengals have kind of done in the past when they had Gio Bernard and those guys. So it's an explosive offense that you want to see the defense have good communication all day, and they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's in terms of communication and coverages all game long. Where you can exploit them, use that defensive line, and if Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett can get after Joe Burrow consistently. Watching that Jets game yesterday where the Bengals lost and they were up 11 points in that game, the reason why the Jets were able to come back, they were able to get pressure on Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow was not able to come back in that game to get the win for the Bengals because of the pressure. He wasn't able to set his feet. Didn't have time to find Chase and the rest of those receivers downfield and was, kind of picking himself off the ground. The offensive line isn't as bad as people thought it was going to be when they wanted people or Bengals to take Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, and they all criticized that pick. But it's still not a great offensive line, and any quarterback that feels pressure all day long cannot get in a rhythm. Joe Burrow gets in a rhythm, Browns are in for a long day on Sunday.
And that offense, even if the Browns defense plays well, that offense is going to put points on the board. So Browns need to be able to run the ball effectively, and then they need a couple of explosive plays.
They do need explosive plays. They need to be able to score like they did again in Los Angeles and defense get a few stops. But this offense just looks like it can't find any sort of traction at all. They're going to have to find it and find it in 6 days on Sunday to compete and roll with the Bengals and try to get the victory down there in Cincinnati.
Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Kevin, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much every single time, Dave, for having me on.
Appreciate it. Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Make sure you listen to him. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will be back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, Mary Kay Cabot. That is at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.